Welcome to another Sunday morning. Unfortunately, as you can hear, my voice is still croaky. It really hasn't recovered yet. I'm on my second bout of antibiotics from the doctor, so we shall see what happens with this lot. So it's another Sunday morning. It's Sunday Morning Rant, and you have to put up with me drinking my tea as we go. And yes, I am a Winnie the Pooh fan, and yes, my kids are as well. But I just need something to keep the throat lubricated. So, where do I start? So, I am a member of quite a few user groups on the internet, and to be honest, for the legacy pieces of equipment I've got, sometimes they are probably the only source of information I'm going to get on some of this stuff. But you know, the bottom line is many of the people who developed things like this, which was in the 80s, were probably in their 40s at the time, and probably now are in the big band in the sky. So you know, the original thinking about why something was done in a certain way is probably lost unless it's with somebody's in somebody's mind in one of the user groups. So you know, the user groups are really important. I contribute where I can. I do things like this where I talk to video, and I also do the instructional stuff on my channel where I sort of, you know, say, well, this is how you do this, you know, if you're struggling with it. But one of the things that I've seen recently come up is sort of, you know, people sort of complaining, I suppose, or saying the MX-1, which is this Roland area unit that's sitting behind me, I'm trying to go backwards, is not doing what they expected it to do. And I think the first thing I would say about the Roland area unit is you need to understand, or you really need to think about how you're going to use our ARIA in your setup. So the MX-1 has 3 modes. So the first mode is probably, as it comes out of the box, is in mixer mode. Okay, that assumes there's no computer involved. You're going to plug your System 1 and possibly some other audio sources into the back of the unit, and therefore, you know, you're just going to use it as a mixer, okay, and apply some effects on top of that stuff as it exits the unit itself. So in that mode, okay, it will act as a mixer, and that's all it will do. Right? Then there's another mode, which is a surface mode, and that mode is assuming that you're going to be connected to a door, you've got the appropriate door plug-in installed, and you're going to use the mixer more as a surface control for the door, and therefore it will work in a slightly different mode. Now, if you're in surface control mode, okay, the mixer will not allow you to mix sounds. Right, it's quite important, fundamental, and it really threw me for quite a few weeks when I first bought the unit, because I'm sitting there thinking, why isn't this working? What have I done wrong? And that's the reason why, because I had it set up in surface mode. I've now sort of set mine up in the third mode, which is sort of between the two, which is called extended mode. And in extended mode, what the mixer is doing is it's sort of interfacing with the door, but really it's just being used as a way of getting the sound out of the door, and then being able to adjust the volumes, etc., and apply any post-mix effects to the sound before it hits your monitors. Okay, so it's not actually really affecting the door itself, it's affecting the sound, the signal processing as it comes out. And that's the mode I have, because that mode also works when you've got no computer switched on or attached. So I think you need to understand how you're trying to use the MX-1 before you buy it, because I think one of the things I would say about the literature is it wasn't clear where the MX-1 sat when you bought it, or when you were looking at it to purchase. And I must admit, I fell foul of that myself a little bit, because I thought it was going to do something it necessarily doesn't quite do. But I am happy I bought it. It does do what I want it to do now. So you know, and it controls all the time clocks for all the ARIA stuff and a couple of the other keyboards as well. So for me, you know, it is working and it's doing what it was meant to do without a computer being there. So that works quite well for me. So going back to the original thing is, I think you really just need to go back and look at what you wanted to do. Personally, if you're looking for it to be your surface control, part of your surface control for your door, there are better surface controls out there. And you know, rather than spend £400 on an MX-1, I might turn around and say, well, maybe you need to go and spend £400 on a Akai controller, which I thought was actually rather good, but you know, or an M-Audio surface control or something like that. I think you'd probably get a better bang for your buck if you did that. So that's the MX-1. Looking at my notes and have another slurp of tea. The other thing I've been looking at over the last couple of weeks is customising my my MX-1. Not my MX-1, my TR-8, sorry. And I've sort of seen quite a few of these customisations floating around. I'm not sure, for the two I'm going to show you in a second, I'm not sure if it's one company that is making them and they're being sold by several other companies, or several companies are making them. So I'm not going to mention any names, but if you Google on the internet TR-8 faceplates, you'll come up with the company. It's an American company. It's the one I'm thinking about. As I say, I'm not sure whether they're selling them or making them, so I apologise in advance for that. But what they do is there is this one, and I apologise for the printing because I didn't have any glossy paper, so it's not really, so it's a bit matte. But this is a sort of retro faceplate that takes you back to the old 808 style of drum machine. And I actually think, I must admit, I mean, I was brought up and everything when I was learning my keyboard skills. I'm not sure I've fully learned my keyboard skills even now. But when I was learning about keyboards back in the day, everything Roland was the sort of the orange Roland symbol with the orange writing on black. And that to me just sort of, I think that just looks quite stylish, I must admit. The other thing I like about this is I like about the fact that sort of like the words are being brought out, so bass drum and snare drum and toms, etc. I think it just sort of brings everything a little bit further forward. So yeah, that's quite. I quite like that. Must admit, I quite like that. The other one that sort of is doing the rounds is sort of a 909 retro style. And there's the 909 one. I'm not such a great fan of the 909 styling, never have been, but you can see the whole sort of thing about it. On both of these things, they call them the rhythm composer rather than, what do they call this, a rhythm performer. That's what they call the TR-8. So anyway, I've been looking at it, I've been thinking about it, but I think my purism sort of precludes me from doing an upgrade of either of those two. And the reason why is because for those to work, what you do effectively is you go and buy the faceplate like so, and then what you would do is you would put it on top of here and you would effectively stick it down with the glue. So it's like sticky back plastic. I hope that translates around the world, but there was a product called sticky back plastic when you were growing up, and you basically peeled it off and then smoothed it down. Same idea, you peel it off and then smooth it down. Which means, of course, once you've done it, you can't take it off. It's there. And my experience with these sort of things is that what tends to happen is on the corners of the unit, you know, it gets knocked, it gets, you know, people brush against it, you do things like that with your fingers, and eventually the corners start to lift, and then it just looks really untidy. It looks great when you do it, just looks untidy going forward. So That's probably part of where my purism comes from. So, Roland, wouldn't it be good if you issued head shells that look like that? Wouldn't that be fab? You know, I'm sure there'd be loads of people out there who would go and buy it, because that way it allows you to have the original head shell and an 808 retro head shell or a 909 retro head shell. You know, hello Roland. So that's sort of reason probably why I'm not going to do it. But there's loads of people out there who've done it. I mean, you go on the internet, you can see people who've got these things installed on their TR-8. And good luck to them. You know, fair enough. Each to their own, as they say. But I'm a purist. I like my stuff to be as original as possible. I always look for that when I'm buying legacy pieces of kit. I am a collector. I do collect key synthesizers, drum machines from various points in time where I think they're relevant, and potentially I can use them in my music going forward. Hence the reason why you sort of look around me and you can see an M1, a D50 and whatever sitting there, and there's some other legacy pieces of equipment down here, like there's a, yeah, we'll come on to those one other day. So to me, I'm sorry, but you know, it wouldn't work for me unless Roland allowed you to buy brand new head shells. Then that might be an option. There are a couple of other interesting variations on the theme. So they are the two sort of retro, make your TR-8 look retro like a 909 and an 808. And of course, you know, remember this thing has got those sounds lovingly restored in here. You know, and if you've seen some of the videos, I remember, go back to a video with the mixing team, the Freemasons, a little before I bought this, and they tried it out and they went bang on their TR-8, they went bang on their 808, and then they compared the waveforms, and you know, pretty much bang on, identical. So you know, just different way of constructing the waveform. Anyway, moving on. So yeah, there was a couple of other interesting ones I came across on the internet, so I thought, well, I'd show these to you. So here is somebody who has a bit of a Commodore 64 thing going on. As you can see, it now looks like a bit of a Commodore 64. I had a Commodore 64 in years gone by. I think it may actually still be in my mother's loft, if I'm honest. It probably doesn't work. Yeah, no, I'm not sure I like that one, but anyway, each to their own. And then you know, some people have gone a bit further, so just rather than just putting faceplates on, I came across this one here. So this one has got blue LEDs instead of the green LEDs, and I actually quite like that. I quite like the ice blue LEDs. They're quite nice. I also like the displays. I must admit, it's one of the mods I'm looking to do on a couple of the keyboards, is to swap out the sort of black on yellow display with sort of the ice blue on white, because they're far easier to read when you've got very little light around. Okay, so I am looking to do the mod on the M1 actually to do that, and I'm also looking to do the mod on the DX7 as well to put the ice white displays in. So yeah, I quite like those. Yeah, so there's me saying I'm a purist. I'm doing a mod, but those mods are for a reason. Okay, so yeah, it's important to remember that. That one, and then we've got somebody who's gone a little bit further, and this I like this. I really do like this. I'm just not sure I'd ever do it, and I'll tell you why in a sec. So there you go. This guy has replaced all the all the green LEDs with pink LEDs, and all the faders and pots with pink pots and faders. I mean, it does look quite cool, I have to be honest, but I'm not sure I could sort of have my... He's also put the faceplate on, so it's got the 808 style faceplate on it as well. Okay, I'm not quite sure I could do with that in my studio every day. I look at my TR-8. But bear in mind, when I say they replace the LEDs, that's not a case of, you know, you just sort of plug one in, plug one out. I mean, that is a fair amount of soldering. Guys had to sweat the old LEDs out and put brand new LEDs in, which of course completely validates the warranty. But but just to sort of that's not a one-off. He also posted a picture on the internet. He's done the same with the System 1. There you go. There's the System 1. So that's the MX-1 and the faceplates. So just to pick up on that, actually, what I would turn around to say is Roland, I think you've missed a trick. I mean, on the MX-1, all different phases of different colours and what have you. Maybe it would be a good idea if because LEDs are as cheap as chips. Maybe it's a good idea, in the next incarnation of the TR-8, where you actually give us the option to change the colour of the LEDs on the unit, because green is great, but sometimes in some venues, like the ice blue, would probably be a better colour. Hey ho, just a thought, Roland. Again, what was I going to say? Yeah, so moving on. So in the good old days when I first had my keyboard set up, and I wasn't as affluent being the wrong word, but I didn't have as much disposable income as I currently have. In fact, I was robbing pizzas to pay Paul to buy pieces of keyboard equipment back in those days. And I basically had a Roland A-220 as a MIDI patching unit. So to give you an idea of where this fits in, so legacy pieces of kit obviously don't have USB. It was all MIDI back in those days, and if you wanted to control one master source to control multiple other keyboard sources, there were a number of different routes you could go down. And I always remember, to be honest, I mean, I had a couple of these units. I've no idea where they've gone. A divorce and separation and what have you later. They're probably somewhere in a box in my ex's house, possibly. But I've no idea where they've gone. But there was a company called Phil Rees, and Phil Rees used to make all these little funny MIDI gadgetry stuff that was great for merging and splitting and controlling MIDI signals across multiple devices. Unfortunately, the company no longer exists as far as I can see from the internet. It went bust well, I'm not sure it went bust. Maybe that's a bit cruel. It definitely went out of business about 10 years ago, as far as I can see, which is a real shame, because the company itself seemed to have the right ideas about the old style MIDI, but it seems to coincide when sort of like the computer technology started to take over from the old style recording studios and sequencing. So I bought an A220, and it was quite a good unit in the days. For the life of me, I can't remember why I sold it, but I did. I remember selling it. I just can't remember the thought process that I went through at the time, because now I'm hitting myself. But effectively with the A220, what you had, and this is where I really do think from memory, I think it was 8 ins and 8 outs. You could have your master keyboards on 2 or 3 of the ins, and then all the other keyboards and the slave units on the outs. And effectively what you could do is you could tell the unit where you wanted the in-on signal, in-on channel 1 to go, which slave units you wanted to be able to control. And that worked really well. Did really work well. And when I put my current studio back together a few years ago, I went out to the market and thought, well, I'm going to probably use a computer now than I'm going to use sort of keyboards on their own, which was a bit of a mistake, because I'm finding I'm tending to use keyboards on their own quite a lot when I'm actually playing around with things, and then I tend to go to the DAW and the computer when I actually want to put tracks down. So I tend to find that sort of the creative process is more me playing around with keyboards themselves and controlling modules. So I actually went and bought a MOTU XT, which is sort of the big brother of the Express. And the reason I went for the XT rather than the Express is because the Express doesn't have like an offline computer mode, whereas the XT sort of does. And it allows you to play one of the masters here and control one of the modules. But what I thought the XT would do was allow me to sort of save a configuration that says, you know, keyboard 1 will control outputs 1, 2, 3, keyboard 2 will control outputs 3, 4, 5, and it doesn't allow me to do that, which is a bit of a bugger, and you know, it means you have to have a door in place to set the configuration in place to make that work, which sort of doesn't sometimes work for me. So what I'm really looking for is I'm looking for a solution like an A-220 or an A-880. Probably an 880 would be a better route for me now, because my my pocket's a bit deeper, and B, I think my requirements are a bit more than the 220 would allow me now. So but it's all about old style MIDI patching, and I think, you know, we've lost the where we are with the music industry at the moment, or the technology behind the music industry at the moment, is we seem to be losing. Everybody's shifting to computers, and I'm not really sure that the computers are the right place for creativity sometimes. Yeah, you can get great stuff out of, you know, Ableton and looping and Pro Tools and doing stuff like that. It's great once you get the track down, but really sort of like, you know, working up an idea in your head, sometimes that you just want to sort of like sit and bash away, you know, and until it sort of comes into something, and then you go to the computer to record it, or then you go to start laying tracks down, then you go and start using Ableton to control units, or Pro Tools, depending on which one you use. I mean, I tend to be Ableton and Pro Tools. I'm not really a Logic fan. It's sort of, where do you go for this stuff? I mean, that's one of the sort of pieces of this. Is where do you actually go and find this information out? You know, I refer to the toy shops, which is music shops to me. You know, back in the day, I mean, back really in the day, you used to walk down Denmark Street in London. For those of you who live in London and know Denmark Street, and they used to have, you know, all the guitar shops on one side and all the keyboard shops on the other side of the road. You know, you could wander into a keyboard shop, or you could wander down Charing Cross Road to Turnkey. And I used to use Turnkey a hell of a lot in the day. But you used to walk down Charing Cross Road to Turnkey, and you walk in there and you go up to the guy on the counter and you say, I want something that does this. And I think that's where Phil Rees originally came from, because I walked in there and said, I want something that allows me to have two sources and merged into, and that's where my first Phil Rees unit came from Turnkey. But those shops, to be honest, in London don't exist anymore. There is a fantastic shop in Guildford. So if you live in the south of England, there's a fantastic shop in Guildford called Adjutan's, and they are very, very knowledgeable. They have a lot of kit on display. You know, they allow you to play with the kit as well, which is really good. You know, you can ask them for a set of headphones. They'll give you a set of headphones, and you can sit and play to your heart's content. So for both keyboards, drums, and guitars, in fact, they support the entire sort of the whole band environment. PA's the lot. They're really good. So, you know, if you want to go and talk to somebody, you can go and talk to them. And they're quite knowledgeable, but some of this stuff is sort of before some of their guys' time. To be fair, you know, they're sort of young musicians who are, you know, working in a music shop as a hobby and a way to acquire kit probably. There is also another good shop, although I've only been there once, which is absolutely in Bournemouth. That's another big environment. Can't really comment on the sort of the sales staff down there personally, because I've never really used them, but you know, it's a big shop with lots of equipment in there, so you know, there should be some expertise in there as well. But yeah, I mean, the bottom line is, where do you go to find this stuff? I mean, you know, people like me sort of doing this stuff to video and blogs and stuff like that on the internet. But yeah, so anyway, if anyone has got a UK spec A80 they're willing to send or sell, or a UK spec A110 they're willing to sell, you know, ping me on the channel. I will not diddle you out of money. I'm not going to pay over the odds, but I won't diddle you out of money. You know, but I would like to try and acquire one of those units, or both of those units. And the final thing is, this morning, as he rants on, Maclocks.com, I'm sorry, but you're off the Christmas card list. So just to recap on this one. Here is my Mac. As you can see, there was the locking component that fell off, and I reported on my rant several months back that I wasn't impressed that it had snapped off. Some guy from MacLocks.com was on email, posted a comment on the channel very quickly to say, please email me with your issue and photographs, which I duly did, and I have heard not a jot from them. So, MacLocks.com, you're off the Christmas card list. And on that note, seeing as the sun has just come out, and I don't think we're going to get too much of it today, I'm going to say see you next time, and have a great Sunday. Cheers.